Welcome back, Camily. I can't believe I'm making this video today, but I've been writing my memoir and I got to the part in the book where these events are taking place. And I don't know, there's just so much in my book that this particular story isn't really the focus. It's a part of my story and it's something that happened to me. And I really want me telling this story to have the impact that I want it to have. So much of what I share online and in the book is in order to help people who have gone through similar things. And I just know there's a lot of girls watching my videos who have probably been through this. I know a lot of people in my personal life who have been through this. And so today I want to share my story about the time that I was sexually assaulted. This actually isn't the only time that this has happened to me, but it's the one that sticks out the most. And the way that things transpired after and the way that it was handled was very traumatizing as well. So this story just felt really important for me to share. I think it'll also be really healing for me because, you know, the guy never faced any consequences and I've mostly kept quiet about what happened. I don't think me posting this will directly impact his life at all. I don't think he's even gonna see it ever or hear about my perspective. I've thought about in the last year reaching out to him and just kind of saying my piece now that we're both adults, but I don't know what I'd gain from that really. So growing up, my family was pretty close with a few other families who had kids around me and my siblings' ages. They were just a group of parents who liked to hang out and all the kids would hang out and we'd have these parties. So we were all very close. Most of my friends as a child were family friends rather than like my own friends from school. And one of those family friends had 3 kids, an older boy who was my sister's age, so about 2 to 3 years older than me, and then a younger daughter who was my brother's age, so 2 years younger than me, and then a little boy who was the same age as my youngest sister. And you know, we hung out all the time, we had sleepovers. I have a lot of childhood memories just hanging out with their family. And it was a known thing that my older sister and their older son kind of had a crush on each other. And you know, the parents would tease them about it and they'd go on like little dates. And that was just kind of always a thing till they were like 12 years old and we moved away and really never saw them again. Fast forward a few years, I'm 14 years old and I just started dating Landon, my high school boyfriend. And those family friends had moved to Oklahoma and we were in Texas. And we hadn't seen them in 4 years, but you know, they were old family friends. And so we planned a trip during Easter weekend to go spend the weekend at their place in Oklahoma. My older sister was 16 and she just got her first job and she couldn't get off work. So she just stayed home. And so it was just me and my parents and the rest of my siblings and I. Landon and I had been dating for a while and usually he would go on trips like that with us, but he didn't this time. I don't really remember why. But yeah, we get there and everyone had grown up a lot. The older guy, Tyler, he was 17 now. And my younger brother was 12 and his sister was also 12. So Corbin and her just ran off together and like had a blast. They pretty much hung out during the whole trip. And then my youngest sister and the youngest son in their family were the same exact age as well. So they also just kind of hung out the whole time. And that left me being the oldest and Tyler also being the oldest and just no one to hang out with. And so we hung out a little bit. I mostly just hung out with my brother and my parents. I was kind of miserable to like be away from my boyfriend. And I was just texting a lot and listening to music with my headphones on. Just typical 14-year-old on family vacation. I don't know, Tyler kept jokingly teasing me and was definitely pretty friendly towards me the whole time. We played video games together a little bit. But I don't know, everything seemed pretty normal. I definitely felt like if my older sister was there, then he would be talking to her and hanging out with her. But since she wasn't, you know, I was there. I had a boyfriend. I really wasn't interested in Tyler at all. There was definitely nothing there. The last night that we were there, We were all hanging out, the parents, everyone, the kids. We were all just having a good time. The parents were getting pretty drunk. I want to say I had slept on the couch the previous nights, but as everyone was hanging out, I was in Tyler's room by myself, just playing GTA on his Xbox. And eventually I just fell asleep in there. I'm awoken from my sleep by him touching my chest, just over my shirt, and I didn't know what to do. I felt really frozen, and so I just kind of laid there until he stopped, and my mind was just racing. The last thing I wanted to do was like wake up and make things awkward and confront him. I was a very non-confrontational child, and I was scared, and so he left the room, and I woke up and sat up so that way if he came in again, he would know that I'm awake. And when he came back, he had 2 drinks in his hand and offered one to me. He said that our parents were super drunk and he was able to steal these drinks. And at this point, that's not the first time something like that had happened to me, being groped by teenage boys. Unfortunately, it seemed like that kind of behavior, it wasn't normal, but it wasn't as alarming as it should have been. I guess I just didn't think that it would go any further. Like, I was definitely creeped out by it, but you know, I was 14. And I was also at the age where I was stealing my parents' alcohol and trying weed for the first time, and I was definitely a little out of control. And so, you know, if someone's offering me a drink, I'm gonna drink it. And that's something that was really hard for me after the fact to reconcile with. Like, he had already touched me while I was sleeping. Why on earth would I get drunk with him? And that's something that other people blamed me for as well. And even 10 years later, it's hard for me to sit with, you know? That wasn't a smart decision. But just because I made a stupid decision doesn't mean I deserved what happened to me, or I could have known what was going to happen. I think a part of me just wanted it to blow over and to just forget about it and get drunk and move on and have it just be like not this weird thing between us anymore. I don't know, like if I got drunk with him and we hung out and played video games again, it would just be fine and normal and we could move on. Because part of me was like, he had to have known that I was awake, you know? As if I slept through that. Clearly he saw me like a few minutes later, wide awake. And so yeah, I really just didn't want to make him feel weird about it. That's just kind of the person I was. Like, I would take the burden of other people's unease and uncomfortability for them to make them feel better. So yeah, I accepted the drink and I was pretty lightweight. And you know, he was a really big guy. He was 17, he was really tall. He was definitely not as drunk as I was. So we put on a movie together. I don't remember. He's just like talking to me about his favorite movie and he starts getting really close to me and eventually he turns it off and just starts talking to me about how he always liked me better than my older sister and just kept comparing me to her. Was trying to play on this jealousy that I had for my sister, that she got attention from boys and I didn't. And he just kept telling me how I'm so much hotter than her. At this point, I start getting really uncomfortable. I don't really want to be there anymore. But I'm drunk and I know I'm gonna be in really big trouble if my parents catch me drinking again. And so I felt like getting up and going to the living room where everyone was just wasn't an option for me in that moment. I mean, looking back, it was, and that's what I should have done, even if I would have gotten in trouble, but I wasn't thinking that way at the time. And then he got on top of me and kissed me, and I told him that I had a boyfriend, which he knew. I had been texting my boyfriend all weekend. But yeah, I just kept saying that, like, no, I have a boyfriend, I have a boyfriend. And he was like, oh, he's not gonna know, don't worry about it. And at that point, I just kept saying, no, 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 stop. I don't think anyone heard anything, they were all in the backyard, and I just wasn't sober enough to like really fight him off that well. And then he forced his hands down my pants. I remember I was wearing my brother's pajama pants. He wore these pants like every single day. And I was just thinking like, I'm gonna have to burn these pants. I don't ever want to see these pants again. And then he grabbed my wrist and forced my hand down his pants. And then he just kept begging like, just a little, just do this for a little bit. And I was just not, like I didn't want to, I wasn't going to. I just kept saying no. Eventually he just gets really mad and frustrated and turns around. I feel like he said something to me, but I don't really remember what he said. But you know, it was definitely like he was in defeat and gave up. And I just laid there and I just felt so frozen and stuck. And I just kept thinking about Landon and just like, how am I gonna tell my mom this? How am I gonna tell Landon this? Will they even believe me? And eventually I just fall asleep there in his bed. The next morning, I'm sleeping like facing away from him, looking at the wall. And once again, I wake up to him touching me, and I thought it was over, but it's not. At this point, we're both sober. And he puts his hand down my pants again and is like, oh, you're so wet. And I just start like crying, and I can hear my family through the wall like making pancakes for breakfast. As I'm sobbing, he just kind of stops, and I get up and I go to the bathroom and I go find my brother, and I tell my brother what happened. And you know, I'm still just kind of like in disbelief, and I just have to like go in front of his parents and my parents and act normal. He just kind of hides away in his room for the rest of the morning. We pack our bags, and you know, my mom's taking pictures of everyone together, like, oh, this was such a fun trip, we have to do this again, you guys should come to Thanksgiving. And you know, they're like, all right, say goodbye, Cameron, say goodbye to Tyler. And I was just so disgusted. And so we get in the car, and it's quite a long drive back, and during that drive I'm texting Landon and telling him what happened. And as I'm texting him, he is sleeping over at his best friend's house. And so he has his friend in his ear telling him, she's lying, she cheated on you, she's only saying it wasn't consensual because she doesn't want to be a cheater. And so at first he was very unsure and didn't really know if he believed me. But as I talked to him about it more, he goes from being upset with me to being upset with Tyler. Eventually we make it back home, and I see Landon again, and we kind of make a plan to confront him. Landon was like, I'm gonna text him and I'm gonna scare the shit out of him. And also Tyler had a girlfriend at the time who was around his age. They were both like 17, so they were a few years older than us. And so Landon told him like, you're gonna go tell your girlfriend what you did to my girlfriend, and you're gonna send me screenshots, and then you are never going to talk to Cameron again. And so he sent over screenshots where he had texted his girlfriend saying, I cheated on you with this girl. It didn't go all the way, but some stuff happened. And Landon's like, hell no, that's not what I told you to say. That's not the truth. I don't really think he responded after that. That was kind of it. And then nothing else really came of it for a few months. But then my mom told me that their family is gonna spend Thanksgiving with us. At this point, Landon's like, you need to tell your parents. They need to know, so that way he doesn't come here. And I was really nervous to tell my parents. I didn't think that they would believe me, but I did. And they expressed some disappointment that I got drunk with him, and very much like questioned why I would do that after he had already touched me while I was sleeping. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm so stupid, I'm sorry. But then they told me that, well, we'll still have the trip, they'll still come for Thanksgiving, and you can just spend Thanksgiving with Landon's parents, which I felt really betrayed by. A few days later, I bring it up again and tell them that I want to file a report. I want him to have some kind of consequences. And I was basically told that that wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't be worth it. I waited too long. Nothing would come of it. And they definitely seemed a lot more hostile the second time that I brought it up. And they told me that they had talked to his parents about it. And so they're in charge of punishing him for it, I guess. About a week later, I'm on my parents' iPad and it's connected to their iMessage. And I saw a message between my parent and his parent where it basically went, Cameron and Tyler apparently fooled around and got drunk over the Easter trip. And they just responded, oh, kids will be kids, these teenagers, they're so out of control. And any mention of it being non-consensual was just left out. And then I saw a separate thread with the other parent. I'm trying hard right now to not be specific about which parent it was who did this. But yes, I saw the text between my parent and the other parent. I saw no mention of what happened between me and Tyler on that text thread, but reading those messages, there was obviously an affair happening. I don't think my other parent knew about it, and all of a sudden, you know, it made sense why they were trying to protect Tyler, because they were cheating with one of his parents. And so because of that, they didn't want to blow it up and make a big deal out of it, because their affair was more important than my assault. And you know, if I hadn't already been through enough, that just made it so much worse. The betrayal from my parent completely destroyed me. Knowing that they weren't going to do anything about it and the reasoning behind not wanting to do anything about it, it just made me feel so unprotected by the person who was supposed to protect me the most. We've talked about it since, and they've apologized, and I've gotten a lot more clarity because I never brought it up. I only ever saw the text messages about the affair. But yeah, I didn't say anything about it. At that point, my parents' marriage was already really bad. They had already cheated on each other multiple times. So it was whatever. A little while later, I saw Landon's best friend in a group chat talking about what had happened and continuing to say that I was lying about it in a group chat with Landon, which was really upsetting for me because Landon wasn't sticking up for me and it was his best friend saying these things. And I didn't even know if Landon believed me anymore because he was letting those lies be spread about me, and I just felt really alone. But I don't want me sharing that part of my story to deter anyone from trying to speak up and get help. If you tell an adult and they don't handle it well, go to another adult, you know, until someone does do something about it. Unfortunately, so many people get away with sexual assault. It's an unfortunate truth about the world that we live in, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't at least try to seek justice. And even if you never get that justice, I want you to know that it is not your fault. No one asks for that to happen to them. No one wants for that to happen to them. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter if you decided to get drunk with them. It doesn't matter if you said yes to one thing but no to another. None of those things make it your fault. I blamed myself for a really long time. I knew what he did was wrong, and I knew it wasn't fully my fault, but I still felt like I was partially responsible in some way, and that's just not how it works and not the case at all. I didn't talk about it in therapy until I was 19 years old, and compared to the other things I was going through, it just felt not that important, and it happened so long ago, and I thought I had just like moved past it and I was over it. But having worked through it in therapy, I realized how much I needed that healing and how much I did still blame myself. And again, just how hurt I was by the way the adults in my life handled it. And yeah, it feels good to share this, even though it was hard, to just be on the other side of it and hopefully help people who carry that same weight and feel that same blame. As a parent myself, it's made me very hyper-vigilant about my kids and who they spend time around, because it could happen with anyone, even a family friend that you've known forever. And it hurts so much to think about something like that happening to them one day. And it also just hurts knowing that, like, if they ever came to me with something like that, I would never handle it the way it was handled. And not for a second would I blame them. Well, thank you guys so much for watching and letting me be vulnerable. And I will see you in the next video, Camille.